Hey, short lecture, and it's meant to be. I'm not going to try to teach you how to be a counselor in this little short session or any of the future short sessions related to this new area to address. Sorry about that. What I'm getting at is basically this: your reading assignments are detailed. Um, And the things that I want you to get out of that are the things I'm going to start covering starting with this lecture rather than um, follow up explanations of what you should have already read or in the midst of reading. For example, let's use this situation right now. We're going to be talking about abuse of drugs and alcohol. I'm not going to talk to you about that particular those nuts and bolts. What I'm going to talk to you about, and from this point forward, is how do you counsel for this? Because that's what this is, a counseling class. I wanted to lay the groundwork in week one, and now I'm going to dive into some techniques. Be advised, this is not an exhaustive view. There is so much in the realm of counseling, there's no way to learn it in a beginning counseling class. So, what I'm going to do is highlight some things. And those highlights are meant to show you the tip of the iceberg, just how in depth this can get. So, what you're going to hear in this lecture is, again, not exhaustive. It's just touching um, the substance of what counseling is. How's that sound? I like that. Okay, so with all that in mind, you have already um, by now begun your reading about in this section about the abuse and use of alcohol and drugs. So I'm skipping to the counseling. And the reason I'm saying it is this: you've made a determination. If you're the counselor, you have the background, you've interviewed the student or the subject or whoever it is, and the adolescent, and now you've made a determination. And your determination is that, yes, intervention is needed. And then obviously, what are you going to do? You're going to explore what your options are related to this person. There's no textbook kind of, okay, they have symptom A, B, C, and D. Well, automatically you jump to something. That's not the way it works. You have to understand who it is you're dealing with. That's why counseling is, and psychology, psychotherapy is kind of tough in some ways because it's not like you can just pick up a flip card and say, "Oh yeah, here's what we do." That's not that way at all. So you design a program. However, with all that in mind, there are guidelines that have been developed over the years that pretty much uh, offer a reliable basic plan to get involved with this intervention business. And that's what I want to talk to you very briefly about. I keep saying briefly, it probably wound up being 30 minutes, about what this entails. And then I'll hit on something after this just to give you an idea of how complicated this gets. So what do we want to do? This guideline, these are the guidelines. There are 7 of these guidelines that have been established, as I say, over time and basically exist in manuals of counseling that give a counselor or a psychotherapist a beginning working plan. So, what does it entail? Okay, first of all, it's an adolescent, right? So, number one, we got to make sure the parents are involved. Now, woo. How did the teenager get there? Did the parents fail? Uh, think about the questions that could arise from that. How involved have the parents been in the past? Maybe that's why this kid's in drugs. Maybe the parents don't know how to intervene. Maybe they've tried to the limit of their understanding. So you got a lot of stuff to work with here. But we really, if capable, if acceptable, if it's available to us, we want their intervention, because up to a point in a child's life, the parents are the authority, and then they make a shift over to peers, and they put parents on the back burner because they don't care whether they're accepted by their parents or not, but they certainly want to be accepted by their peers. It's other whole study. So we have parents' involvement, hopefully. And then we want to provide information about drugs. We want to be truthful with the teenager about their involvement, and they need to be truthful with us about their involvement. Why? What's the interest in this? Number three, we give them opportunities for replacement of their current drug-related behavior. And we want to replace that with health-promoting behavior. You got to be careful with number three, because you start jamming stuff down their throat and they're going to naturally reject it. And think about this. They're an adolescent and you're an adult. So a lot of times, I don't know if a lot of times is the right phrase, there is the occasion for them to view you as just another adult. Oh, they don't understand, even though they're a counselor. So there's some convincing that has to take place there. So I'm going to softly suggest to you, you know what, instead of doing that drug thing, maybe you ought to do this instead, because drugs are going to eventually destroy you. Number four, health promoting alternatives used in free time, and together with the parents and the adolescent, you explore those and then you develop those. You wouldn't want to ask, although you may offer, and you should, various opportunities for health promoting alternatives. And I'm going to address what health promoting really involves. In their free time, you also have to understand that they have interests. So what you're offering may not be interesting to them. So this is why it's called counseling. And this is a two-way street here. What do we mean by health promoting? This is number four. Still, health promoting. What kind of health? Well, what's the obvious? Mental, right? We're going to start with mental health. That's what we are, mental health people. So we're going to start there, and then it can eventually evolve into mental/physical, because again, drugs, your body is not built to consume poisons in large amounts, and you're killing yourself, one organ at a time, I guess. So health promoting, you got to get the head right, and that'll help getting the body right. Number five, students need to be given opportunities to explore their capabilities. And there are ways that they can maybe have be a source of a contributor to school and family. It's getting a little bit of a stretch, isn't it? Kind of like pie in the sky. But what are we dealing with in most of this? Identity. So we got to understand what their identity is, their self-identity, their self-definition of who they are. And we want to work with that and work it into, not around, into their identity. What's your identity? Who are you? And you even want to throw out, why are you? Depending on who it is you're dealing with. And then we want to gain their respect. That sounds like it should have started in the beginning, right? That should have been number one. It's not going to happen in number one. You don't even know them, they don't know you. So you have to work through this. And that in the background, while you're doing this, you always have to keep in mind that you got to be respectful and you got to ask for respect, but that's an ongoing process. So I'm going to try to be a role model for you. Refer back to number one, parent involvement. Maybe they weren't the role model they should have been. Nobody's perfect. The parents are going to have their own sets of problems, really. So they may be working through those themselves. And even their parenting style, permissive parents, engaged permissive parents, indulgent permissive parents, and indifferent permissive parents. Permissive parenting is not a good style of parenting, although some parents think it is because they want to be their kid's friend. You got to be their parent first, become a friend later. Uh, Studies have been done about the different parenting styles. I think most of you are familiar with this. Permissive, indulgent, permissive, indifferent. I won't go into a long, detailed explanation of that. If I'm a permissive, indifferent parent, I don't care about you. Go live your life. I'm living mine. If I'm an indulgent parent, permissive, indulgent, then yeah, I really do care for you. But I'm going to say, do what you want to do because I love you and I'll get you out of trouble. Authoritarian and authoritative. Authoritarian would be like Marine Corps boot camp parent. Uh, the fist comes down hard and frequently. And authoritative is here are the rules, but they're discussed. We can discuss them. It's not an automatic condemnation. We'll sit down and discuss what went wrong here. So you have to take that into account in number one to get to number five. I need to help you, and number six, I need to help you get to a better identity, maybe, but I also need for you to respect me because I'm here for you. And you have to be convinced of that, and it has to be altruistic. And then number seven, um, you give opportunities for continued support, uh, and support them as they make these changes. So you don't throw it out there. Okay, here's what you need to do. Bye, see you. Thanks for coming by. And uh, we have to plan for referral. We have to plan for termination of treatment. Yes, but uh, if you get these 7 guidelines in place as your basic plan of action, then that's going to kind of evolve into uh, what you need to do for this person, including termination of treatment and based on who they are. Hope that makes sense. So that's the beginning of treatment. That's laying the treatment down. Now uh, here's a jump. I just want to throw this out there, and I've already mentioned it, referral. Just to give you an idea of how this stuff can be so different, I guess is the best way to put it. Not sure I like that. Give you an idea of a treatment that maybe a factor of treatment that maybe has to be considered doesn't mean you failed. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. You didn't fail in what you're doing. You just realize that the seriousness of this situation is more than these 7 guidelines set you up for. And what am I talking about? Inpatient treatment, a very tough thing because they're committed now, uh, voluntarily or involuntarily. So if it gets to a point where it's serious enough, then they're going to have a staff to treat them, an intensive treatment regimen uh, in a hospital setting. And they usually last 6 to 8 weeks. And then there's many months of follow up. I can tell you a real life situation of a fellow. Some of you have been in my past classes, and I mentioned this guy before, um, who was offered every opportunity and every treatment just about that's out there, um, short of inpatient, and then wound up being in inpatient treatment for 4 months. I think it was 4 months, and in the hospital the whole time, clean, uh, making progress. Everything's cool. And they go, okay, you're good to go. We're releasing you, sending you home today. This man's 40 years old. How he got to be 40 with all his drug use, I don't know. Released him. Mom picked him up, took him home because he had a place to live. He's living with her. Got home that very afternoon. They had to call an ambulance out and administer Narcan because he overdosed. I mean, so go figure. Failure rate's rather high. Here are some of the guidelines that would cause you to refer for in-person, um, inpatient treatment. Adolescents that have tried to quit and they're unsuccessful. And it has to be multiple times, not just once. Or they've been highly unsuccessful in outpatient treatment programs. They've OD'd, or the potential for an OD is very strong. And they're mixing things like street drugs and alcohol. Number 4, medical attention is needed to control withdrawal symptoms, because you're talking here about physical addiction. Psychological addiction's different. Are there withdrawals not the same as physical? Physical withdrawals will kill you. Number 5, biggie. My goodness, suicidal thoughts. Bad trips, flashbacks. Don't ever take lightly the mention of suicide by somebody who's having a difficult time. That's all I need to say about that. Number 6, adolescence being out of control. Skipping school, failing school, breaking the law to obtain drugs. And then when they're confronted with it, denial. Although there's strong evidence of drug abuse. So I just had a headache. That's why I didn't go to school today. Yeah. And then finally, family members who were just at their end. They're at the end of their rope, emotionally shot because of the symptoms of drug abuse, mood swings, social problems, fights, arguments, things that accompany drug abuse and alcohol abuse. I probably am remiss for not saying that we're not only dealing with drugs here. All of this stuff I've been talking to you about includes the abuse of alcohol, the most abused thing there is out there. And then here's an item. I'm throwing this out there just again to illustrate the panorama of things to consider in treatment programs when you're the counselor. And this may seem stupid, but it's a biggie. And this is just among a lot of treatment techniques, a lot of treatment considerations. And again, I'm just trying to give you detail. So, stress management. How in the world? Adolescents are under a lot of pressure. You've been one. Most of you are not far removed from that. You know the stresses are that go with that. You started around 10, 11, 12, physically changing, not understanding particularly what's going on, although having some idea I'm growing up. I guess that's the answer you immediately give to yourself. But sometimes you don't account for what's changing up here either. A better understanding of what life's all about. So what does it cause? It causes stress for some. Some of it's maddening. So we use therapy to help you through the stressful transition from late childhood into puberty and adolescence. We even want to discuss it with you. And then you may go through a stress reduction program using general guidelines, but coordinated and specifically attuned to you as an individual. And one mention that gets left out is, what is your spirituality like? Do you have a relationship with the Lord? So you can use that as an aid in the treatment. And that's going to depend on the teenager's maturity in terms of their faith. Some take it seriously, and it's the way the world works. Some don't. So maybe that's something you turn to. Maybe you turn to that first if you're the counselor. Who knows? Hope this informed you a little bit. And again, this is not anything coming close to telling you all the techniques and the approaches, etc., to use in the counseling session or sessions. That's just an idea that that's how diversified this stuff is. All right, so put that one in the bank, and I'll be back with you soon.